and all that kind of thing in her experience in Alaska. She was forceful, she was knowledgeable, she had studied her brief, and she had it thoroughly down. I mean, I don't think she didn't make a single mistake that I could.
Alright, so as I said before, fairly boring. Here's SNL's interpretation of the same debate.
With Barack Obama, you're going to be paying higher taxes, but not with me and my fellow maverick. We are not afraid to get mavericky in there and love each other and not got to allow that. And also to the great Ronald Reagan.
Alright, so obviously a very different approach. SNL took a very negative slant to Palin's performance in the debate. And why would Saturday Night Live affect viewers more? Well, you could hear a lot of laughter in the background. I saw some smiles, heard a couple chuckles from you guys. Obviously, this is much more enjoyable coverage than an analyst sitting behind a desk saying, oh yeah, she did a good job. For one thing, it's kind of more interactive. You're able to form your own opinions about Palin's performance based on Tina Fey's interpretation of it. Although it's Fey's interpretation, you're kind of drawing your own inferences instead of someone saying to you, yeah, she did a good job. So, how does Fey do this? Well, polling reflected that. At the beginning of October, 50% of voters surveyed said Governor Palin was not prepared for the job of vice president. Throughout the month of October, several sketches starring Fey as Palin aired, and at the end of that month, that number rose to 59% of voters. Why? Well, for one thing, Tina Fey and Sarah Palin have bear a striking resemblance to one another. Even if you take away all the hair, makeup, and wardrobe, they look very similar. And then when you add those things on, Tina Fey pretty much becomes Sarah Palin, and it's hard for viewers to distinguish between what Tina Fey is saying in her character of Sarah Palin and what is actually coming from Sarah Palin herself. This becomes even harder when you include the often used Palin phrases that Fey repeats. In the vice presidential debate sketch alone, the word maverick is used 7 times. Although no one really knew what maverick meant, Palin often described herself and John McCain as mavericks throughout her campaign. And Fey really takes advantage of that. She even at the end of the sketch looks into the camera and says, to all you Joe Sixpacks out there playing a drinking game, maverick. She really, really acknowledges that this word is very overused by Palin. She also takes advantage of the outsider-insider analogy that Palin used throughout the campaign. Palin often said that she was a better candidate than Joe Biden because Joe Biden was a Washington insider. While he was in Washington gathering his years of experience with the other Washington insiders, she was living with the real people of America, learning what middle-class America actually wanted from a leader. Actually, this kind of made her sound inexperienced and unqualified for the job, while she brought up Joe Biden's experience and qualifications for the job. Fey really highlights this in these sketches. Joe Sixpack and Hockey Moms, just a couple of slightly condescending phrases she used to try to relate to what she saw as the general public. This is an interview with
ill about the position that America is in, and that we have to look at a $700 billion bailout. At the same time, we know that inaction is not an option. And as Senator McCain has said, unless this nearly $1 trillion bailout is what it may end up to be, unless there are amendments in Paulson's proposal, really, I don't believe that Americans are going to support this, and we will not support this. The interesting thing in the last couple of days that I have seen is that Americans are waiting to see what John McCain will do on this proposal. They're not waiting to see what Barack Obama is going to do. You know, is he going to do this and just see what way the political winds blow? They're waiting.
So you probably have no idea what the question was, and that's because she didn't really answer one. The question was, what do you think of the potential $700 billion economic bailout? If she did answer it, she gave conflicting answers. I'm ill, but we need it, but I don't think Americans want it. And it was very vague and meandering. Someone who's not necessarily educated about economic policy might not be able to tell that that was a very vague and unclear answer. They might just be kind of confused, but think, well, I don't really know much about policy. Well, the way Tina Fey parodies this in her sketch of this interview with Katie Couric makes it a lot clearer.
Like every American I'm speaking with, we are ill about this. We're saying, hey, why bail out Fannie and Freddie and not me? But ultimately what the bailout does is help those that are concerned about the health care reform that is needed to help shore up our economy, to help, be all about job creation too. Also too, shoring up our economy and putting Fannie and Freddie back on the right track. And so healthcare reform and reducing taxes and reining in spending, because Barack Obama, you know.
So not only does this clip help viewers to understand why the answer was largely thought of as a very bad one, she's very vague and meandering and kind of tries to buy herself time to think of the correct answer. It's also a great example of how good Faye was, of picking up on Palin's vocal cadences and the gestures she consistently used while talking, particularly at the end. So it's a very good example of why Faye's parodies negatively affected Palin. Now, some people think it might not, that Palin's drop in the polls doesn't correspond with these sketches. Well, let's go back to the Larry David Bernie Sanders example. The impersonation was very similar to that of Faye's and Palin. They look similar to begin with, and again, with his hair combed over like Sanders is, dressed up like Sanders, David looks a lot like Bernie Sanders. And like Faye did with Palin, he focuses a lot on Sanders' politics. Sanders is known to be a little bit of an extremist, so this is an answer Larry David gave as Bernie Sanders in Saturday Night Live's sketch of the Democratic debate this year.
We're doomed! We need a revolution! Millions of people on the streets! And we gotta do something! And we gotta do it now!
So, this interpretation, again, was reflected in the polls. Even though a lot of people thought Sanders delivered a very strong performance in the Democratic debate, possibly even winning it, he actually dropped from 38 to 33% of the polls following the debate. So, Saturday Night Live does affect voters in some way, shape, or form. Why? Well, it all goes back to the relatability of humor. Again, in that Fox News clip we saw at the beginning of the presentation, and once I fixed it, it's not very easy to sit there and form your own opinion. You're having someone tell you his opinion. It's not very relatable. But with these sketches, you get to laugh at the jokes. You get to form your own opinion through their help, and you get to understand what's being said about these candidates. Thank you.